As we mark the 40th anniversary of Women at LaSalle and explore women's role in business, we ask for your guidance. Bless our panelists with wisdom as they share their experiences. May our hearts be open to learn from the experiences shared by them, and may their stories inspire us to strive for excellence in all our endeavors. Guide our discussion, unite us in purpose, and may this time together be filled with insight and understanding. In your holy name we pray. St. John Baptist de LaSalle, live Jesus in our hearts. All right, well, I am going to bring up our Director of Alumni Relations, Ms. Shashalski. She's a graduate of the class of 17. She will introduce today's panelists and get us going, so thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here today. As Ms. Graziano noted, my name is Ms. Shashalski. I'm the Director of Alumni Relations at LaSalle. I'm a proud graduate of the class of 2017, and we're really excited to have all these panelists here. So 2024 is a very special year for LaSalle Academy. It marks 40 years of women at this institution. And today we'll be highlighting LaSalle alumni in business. We hope that you take away valuable insights from this panel and learn about each of their paths from their time here at LaSalle to where they are currently. So before we dive into further topics, I would like all the panelists to introduce themselves, mention their class year, and their roles and responsibilities of their current position. So Sharon, if you would start with this.
Sure, thank you. Hi everyone, my name is Sharon Paquin. I attended LaSalle Academy and graduated in 1989, which was the second year that LaSalle had accepted women into the school. It's really a pleasure to be here today and to be here with the junior class. I was very proud to be a graduate of LaSalle, and both of my children have attended LaSalle as well. Currently, I am the Vice President of Compensation in Human Resources at an environmental services company, which is Clean Harbors. We do a lot of the oil spill cleanups out in the oceans, and we help to refine oil, and we help to keep the earth clean. So in my role as the VP of Compensation, I oversee all of the strategy, the development of the compensation programs for the company, both broad-based compensation as well as executive compensation. So what does that really mean? What it means is I have the opportunity to provide insight and provide the organization with helpful data on a day-to-day basis that helps them to hire people at specific pay rates and helps them to ensure that we keep and retain talented employees within the organization. And further on than that, I also help to ensure that pay that's distributed out to individuals for doing their work is established equitably across the organization, and it's not judgmental in terms of a person's ethnicity or their gender. So that's my role.
Thank you.
Hi all, I'm Melissa Carvalho, formerly Melissa Massassett, and I'm class of 1999. So we were the last graduating class of the century, which is pretty cool. So as for what I do, I'm a big believer in many of us we can be more than one thing. My primary role that pays the bills is I work in talent acquisition. I work at Rhode Island Energy. I was really excited to get into a large company where there's a little more room to navigate around. So my job is to actually go out to various campus locations in college and recruit them to come on in for internship programs and full-time roles. In addition to that, I'm also a career coach on the side, helping people figure out what they want to do and how to get into their next steps. I also teach yoga, which is pretty cool. I've been doing that for over 10 years. And I recently published my first book called Purpose Forward, which is about getting in touch with our purpose and then how we can connect that into a career. So I'm really excited to be here today, and I look forward to chatting with you all.
Hi everyone, I'm Jessica Caparco. I graduated in 1995, so fully the grunge era. I work as the Senior Director of Marketing at the Providence Warwick Convention and Visitors Bureau, which is the longest name. So CVB is what we call it. It's a destination marketing organization, which means that our job is to promote Providence and Rhode Island as a whole as a great place to have meetings, conventions, sporting events, to come to visit as a tourist. So a lot of our work you wouldn't see as a Rhode Islander because we're promoting it outside of the state to bring people in. I've been there 20 years, which is kind of bananas, and it's a great place to work. As the director of marketing, basically my job is we're like an in-house ad agency. So instead of hiring an ad agency, we do the advertising internally, the media buying. I work on all of our brochures, any events, things like that. So it's a really exciting industry, and I kind of love it. So that's it.
Nice. Hi everyone, I am Laura Graziano Bohm. I graduated with Miss Dillon in the class of 2006, so I am old but not quite that old. I work as the director of hotel account management for Expedia. Expedia is the website that your parents and caregivers use to book travel, hopefully. So I have a team of about 60 all across North America, a bunch in the US, a bunch in Canada, and I travel probably about twice a month into different destinations to go visit with them, and we work with hotels to make sure that there are hotel rooms available for you all to book.
Thank you all so much. And I think this next question will really highlight a lot, especially as all of you are kind of starting that college career process. And so while attending LaSalle, did any of you contemplate pursuing a different career path than the one you're currently in? And we can start with Laura.
Oh, yes. So I kicked off my college career going into politics. I was head of student council for LaSalle, for the state. Politics was my jam. Like, I just knew for sure that that was what I was going to do with my life. I was going to become a lawyer. I was going to go run DC. It was great. And I changed my major in like the first year because I realized I didn't want to go to school that much. So I think the most formative experience for me was in senior year of Christian service. We went out to visit a hospital, and I realized in that moment that I was happiest serving other people. So what was really important for me in my career was to find a way that I can make an impact to people. So at first I thought politics, sure, that'll impact people. Then I realized I didn't want to do that at all. So I switched courses, learned media, which that was my degree is media, which is just a fancier term for programming. Found that to be dreadfully boring. So I switched about a year and a half in and moved over to Expedia. Moved my way up pretty quickly because I knew that people were my passion. So it wasn't necessarily about my day-to-day of going to talk to this hotel and get better deals out of this hotel. That's kind of a snooze. What I really found the most joy in was working with my teammates and helping them do better. So I would go find a way to get something done more efficiently. I don't really care about it being done more efficiently. I cared about bringing everybody else in. So that's how I figured out I wanted to be a people manager. So that is completely different from politics, but I do have Christian service and LaSalle to thank for setting me on that course.
I can answer that. I had kind of a windy road to my job. I loved LaSalle, I did well in school, but I didn't know what I wanted to do for a career. And I had a lot of friends that were very much on set paths, either like medical fields or lawyers or that sort of thing. So I went to URI, and I thought I wanted to work in environmental studies or policy. But then by the time I graduated, I realized that wasn't really what I wanted to do. So I ended up kind of just thinking of what did I enjoy, and I was interested in travel, so I ended up working at Colette Vacations, which is it's headquartered in Rhode Island, and I ended up in their marketing department, which I didn't even take a marketing class, and I loved it. But then I decided I wanted to go back to school, so I got a journalism graduate degree at Northeastern, and was able to apply that in my current job because I do a lot of writing and editing, and all of that. I mean, it really does come from LaSalle too. I loved English classes and I loved writing. So for me, it was kind of finding a place where it looked interesting to work, and then figuring out what my skill set was that fit the jobs that they had. Because it's hard. Sometimes you don't know exactly what you want to be when you grow up, and so it was kind of a windy path. My job.
And that's pretty typical.
Yep.
So in my situation, I think in some ways, I'm trying to remember because it feels like a little while ago, I think I kept it simple. I think I took a psychology class at LaSalle, and that really opened up my mind to realizing like that class felt different than all the other classes to me. I was very engaged, I was very interested, and I think I just kept it simple in terms of I knew that I really liked that class. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to be when I grew up, but I decided I was going to major in that, so I went to Rhode Island College. I majored in psychology, and I eventually ended up getting into human resources that way. But I guess my advice would be, when in doubt, study something that you love, and it can always plug into things later. Especially with business, there's many, as you're seeing, there's many different ways to get into business. So my advice is study what you love.
So for myself, I started out on a couple of different avenues as well. I started off as a graduate of LaSalle. I went to Rhode Island College for teaching. And during that time, I had been working part-time at a bank as a teller. And when I was in teaching, I quickly realized that that was not going to be the avenue that I wanted to take for the remainder of my career. And it was funny, a group of our friends, we all sat down. I remember being in the library at Rhode Island College, and we all said, okay, what do we really want to do? Like, we're here today, but is this truly what our passion is and what we're involved in and what do we really want to do? And all four of us, ended up changing our majors. And I just took a look at what I was doing for my work, and I said I enjoyed being in business, I enjoyed working in banking, so I said I'm just going to major in management. And I thought maybe I should be a little bit more specific. And then I majored in human resources management. And that's sort of how I fell on the track to where I'm at today. And then after I got my first job, I took a job as a generalist. So it's basically a human resources generalist where you provide guidance and advice. I did a little bit of recruiting. I did a little bit of benefits. And then somebody had tapped me on the shoulder and said, do you want to learn something new? I can teach you compensation. So I took advantage of that opportunity, and I've been in the role that I'm in now in compensation for the last 23 years. And I guess my advice would be to always try to step out of what you're comfortable with and look at opportunities that are around you. And if you think you might have an interest in it, then go with your feeling and go with your gut and take advantage of the opportunity that's in front of you. And if you like it, that's great. And if not, you can always fall back on what you knew, or you can keep going forward with the new opportunity that you took on. So.
Thank you all. And I know you've all touched on this a little bit as well in your previous answers. So as a student at LaSalle, were there any specific classes, programs, or teachers that inspired you to work in the business field? And Melissa, we can start with you on this one.
Yeah, so again, I think it was the psychology class that I took at LaSalle that really moved me forward into wanting to study psychology. And then once I was a psychology major at Rhode Island College, I remember looking at all the different career options available. And to be honest with you, I chose the one that paid a little more. Because in psychology, there's different tracks. So I'm like, I like working with people. I like the idea of human resources and recruiting. So I think once I was in college and exploring that, it became clear. But again, it was that psych class I took at LaSalle that was the beginning.
For me, English and writing, I loved those classes. Mr. Larkin, I had a couple times. I had Mr. Peach. They were great teachers, so I really enjoyed that. So it does come through in the job that I do now. A lot of copywriting, ad writing, just the editing eye. So yeah, I think those were they were in there. I just didn't realize that's what I was going to end up kind of applying to my job later.
I think, aside from Christian service, debate was super fun. I found that I like to argue with people, so I had to find a path that engaged that side of me.
And for myself, it was, I would say the math classes, algebra, things like that. I obviously ended up eventually in a field that requires mathematical skills. But also, you mentioned Christian service, and that was really important to me. And I really think that Christian service and the religious background that I got at LaSalle helped me become a better leader and helped me to develop empathy for individuals that I lead or manage, because it's really important to understand that everyone has different challenges in their life. And if you're empathetic as a leader, those individuals will end up being comfortable working for you, and they'll be more successful, and I think that's very important.
Thank you. And so, looking at the business world as a whole, what do you see as like the biggest challenges for women working in this field? And Jessica, we can start with you on this one.
I have a unique situation because I am in a field that is kind of dominant by women. So I'm in a bit of a bubble. I've been working somewhere for 20 years where I've had 2 female CEOs. Our current president and CEO is a woman. So I've been very encouraged to, speak my mind, and if anything, our office is actually, there's more women than men in my office, which sometimes we need a balance because we also need all differing views. So I think my personal experience is I'm in a bit of a bubble because I have kind of the opposite of the rest of the world's experience.
I'll jump in there. So I see a big challenge with women when it comes specifically to salary negotiation. There's a statistic out there where men are more likely to apply to a job if they have about 60% of the qualifications on the job posting, where for women it's like 99%, right? And I've seen this firsthand with women coming to me, I'm having a hard time finding jobs I'm qualified for, but they're ruling themselves out because maybe they don't have 100% of the qualifications. But here's a little background. These days when jobs are posted, there's required qualifications and then there's preferred qualifications. The preferred, you don't have to have them, right? You don't have to have as many years of experience or that higher level of education. So I think it's important that as women, we're not ruling ourselves out of jobs that we could be qualified for, that we do take some of those risks. And when we're given a job offer, it's okay to ask for more money, right? Men are more likely to do that than women. So something that I enjoy doing in life is also coaching that women on here's simply how you just put it out there and see if you could ask for more. So that's the biggest thing that I see.
It's a great point. Always ask for more money, no matter what. Just especially women, but always ask for more money, no matter where you are. Except if you come work on the Salle, then they pay fairly, and you should enjoy it. So I think that imposter syndrome is super real. It hits everyone, but it hits women probably a little bit more. Women generally juggle a lot more. You have kids, you're the default parent, you take care of your parents as they age. There's a lot of things that will come up against you in life. This goes for anybody, but more especially women. That you will feel like you can't do it, or that someone else is better than you, or somebody else has got more experience, so that's gonna make them more successful, is so not true. But the amount of self-talk that we put ourselves through is the biggest detriment. It's not real, like thoughts aren't real, right? You can overcome your thoughts. So I think being able to reach out to other people and have those conversations where you get that confidence in another form. Maybe that comes from your partner, right? Number one is having a supportive partner if you choose to have one. That'll take you farther than you could ever go dealing with insecurity. So I think making sure that you have your tribe, your village, your network, whatever it is, and making sure that they have your back, because you're gonna need that in times of doubt.
And for myself, I know someone said that they work in an environment where it's mostly women. For myself, it's completely opposite. So I work in an environment that's mostly male dominated, and if I sit in the boardroom or I sit in meetings, I look around the room and everyone's male except for me. So it's a little unnerving sometimes, but what I've learned over the course of my career is that it's very important to lean in, and I read a book about leaning in, and it's a really great book. But it's just having the confidence, which I think everyone here spoke to understand and to know what your value is, where your education came from, and the experiences that you've had, and having confidence to speak up in meetings and to offer your opinion and know that you will be supported because you have the experience behind you to do that. So that would be my advice.
Thank you all. And so as we're speaking to the junior class today, are there any recommendations that each of the panelists have for any of them who are seeking to enter the business world? And Sharon, you can start with us.
Yeah, sure. So I thought about that question a lot, and I actually broke it down into two categories. So in terms of recommendations, I think of two things, and one of them is technical skills for business, and then the other is personal attributes that you bring of yourself into your work world on a daily basis. So from a technical skills standpoint, a lot of what I deal with and a lot of what businesses are looking for now is to be able to have analytical skills and the ability to not only look at big pieces of data and analyze that data, but also to be able to present the information in an effective and efficient way. So for those hard skills, I would say take as many, if you're looking to go into business, take as many math classes that you can, take statistics courses, and also try to get involved and go out of your comfort zone a little bit and take some public speaking courses and master those skills, because it's very important. But then from a personal perspective, there's a lot of personal attributes that I think are very important in the business world. One of them we talked about a little bit is advocating for yourself, whether you're looking for a first job or you're looking to go to a college or you're looking for a promotion. When you're actually in the business world, it's important to raise your hands to seek out opportunities, and also to let people know, and it's not bragging, but let them know what you've accomplished and what you've done and what your past experiences are. And I think that's all very important. The other thing I wanted to talk about is that you need to understand that it's not always what you know. It's also about how you present yourself. So always present yourself in a positive manner. Always try to be respectful and understand, or try to take a step back and understand where other people's viewpoints and opinions are coming from.
Absolutely, great tips. So for me, juniors, getting ready to go into your senior year, for me, my advice is all about experiential learning. So what is experiential learning? It's getting more experience to figure out what you want to do. So one example is job shadowing. If you get an opportunity to spend a couple hours with somebody doing what you want to do, take it. There was a point where I was thinking about becoming an occupational therapist, and in order to apply to the program, they required that we job shadow for so many hours. And I figured out about an hour and a half into it, I didn't want to be an occupational therapist. And thank God I didn't go to get my master's in that, because it just wasn't a good fit for me. So if you get the opportunity to job shadow, I highly recommend it. Something can look different on paper, right, or on the internet as you're researching than it does in real life. The other thing is called informational interviews. Talk to people who are in the fields you want to work in, right? Maybe your parents know somebody, maybe your teacher knows somebody, maybe your neighbor knows someone. Have a conversation with somebody who's doing what you want to do. It could probably save you a lot of time in the future, just to make sure that it aligns with what you want to do. So job shadow, informational interview, and then the third one is volunteering. That's a great way to get your feet wet as well. If there's a certain industry you want to get into, maybe you can carve out a couple hours a week, to spend some time doing that. Because a couple of things, it's giving you experience in that area, which is something you can put on your resume and later get a job and get into college, and it helps you figure out if it's something you want to do. So those are my tips.
To kind of carry on with the informational interviews, I agree with that wholeheartedly. We've had kids come and talk to us at our office to kind of find out, like, what do you do day to day, things like that. And then personally, right out of college, I went on a slew of informational interviews because I thought, I don't know, I'm interested in travel and tourism, but I have no idea what I have to do to get into that field. So I went to like the state tourism office, and I went to the Convention and Visitors Bureau where I work now, but 5 years earlier, and met with them. They didn't have any jobs at the time. And then that's how I ended up at Collette Vacations, because this person recommended, oh, well, you should go talk to this lady. And it kind of, it's Rhode Island too, small state, so everyone kind of knows each other. And there's a lot of connections. And so then after working at Collette for a few years, I ended up back at the CVB when they had a job opening. And I'd already kind of had a sense of what they did there, and I was interested in it, and it was a great way to know that that was somewhere where I probably would be a good fit. So I think that's a great advice.
Thanks. 3 points to take away. First, don't be weird on TikTok. Like, I don't care how good you think your privacy settings are. I can see it when I go to hire you. So don't be weird. That will follow you. I know. Like, oh, that's what my parents say. Yeah, no, it's because they're working. So number 2 is stop using ChatGPT for everything, especially thank you notes. So you can blow an interview, right? You can mess it up, you can flub it, you can think that you missed a question. If you send a nice, honest, personal thank you note, it'll overcome any interview flub, I promise you. But again, you don't want to go on ChatGPT and say, how do I back up from this interview that I just botched? You just want to go and make it personal. Here's what I learned about you. Thank you for your time. I appreciate everything that I got out of it. And then the third one is you're part of the great LaSalle network. There are people across the country, across the world, that have been in the exact same spot that you've been. So you would be crazy not to use them. So go on LinkedIn. It's an app, if you don't know what that is. It's like a business networking app. Create a profile and just search LaSalle Network and start combing through people. I guarantee you, anybody that's been here in the exact same seats that you have, maybe in a different theater, sorry, I know this is new, but they would be dying to help you. So just use other people, because this is going to be probably the most stressful time in your life coming up this year. Sorry, someone's got to tell you that. It's a lot. It's so much pressure to make the right decisions and go the right places. You're never stuck. You can always change course. It's not that bad, but use other people who have been there, done that, so that you don't have to make the same mistakes and you can learn a little bit faster. And then, when you are successful, turn back around and reach out to the junior class of that time, right? And bring them along with you.
Thank you. And so, looking at your current company, your current position, within the business world as a whole, have you seen diversity and inclusion evolve within this field? And Laura, we can start with you on this one.
So we have seen massive strides in diversity and inclusion. So Expedia is a publicly traded company, which means anybody can go in and pull up what we're doing on a day-to-day basis because we have shareholders. It's all about transparency and their money. It's, I don't know, it's not, that's for another panel. But what we have done is create employee resource groups. So that means we have women, we have Black, we have veteran, we have Asian heritage. Anyway, I'm doing a disservice, but we have a bunch of different groups. So anywhere that you identify or that you're an ally for, you can join these groups and figure out how to push them even further within the community. Because we are privileged, right? A lot of us coming from this education, coming from our backgrounds, we have it a little bit better and a little bit easier than people that don't. So we have very specific hiring goals to bring in more people. So when you go to an interview at Expedia, it's usually about 4 interviews that you have to go through. We have to make sure that there is a balance. So you'll interview with 2 men and 2 women. That's so that I don't just continue hiring women, or I don't hire people that only look like me. There's a lot of checks and balances to make sure that we are being fair and equitable, and making sure that we get out of our silo. And ultimately, it just makes people happier, right? If there's more people that look like you or think like you, you're going to be a lot more productive and want to continue to work for us. So it's a massive priority, not just because we have shareholders, but because it's the right thing. So I think if you don't see that in a place that you're interviewing for, keep looking and ask about it in the interview questions, right? That's actually it's a good interview question if you want to look good. What is your commitment to diversity and inclusion? How do you propel that forward? So all of that to be said, there's companies out there that are doing great work, and look for them. They're people that you want to work for.
In my organization, we've actually made it a priority. We hired a consultant in the past year who works with hotels and tourism organizations. But it's not just for internally hiring, it's also for marketing too, to make sure that we're speaking to all audiences, and it's not just race and gender, it's also ability and age, and there's so many facets to it. And it's also, because our main goal is really to book meetings and conventions, meeting planners are looking for, DEI plans, things like that. So we've really made it a focus, and we're in the process. So right now we're in the consulting process to come up with a fully fleshed out plan.
Sure. So diversity inclusion is definitely continuing to evolve. The way I see that happen the most is even through workforce development. So workforce development is chatting with people before they get to that point where they're making those career decisions, right? So talking to elementary schools, talking to high schools, that you have the ability to be many different things in life. So for example, I work at Rhode Island Energy. At Rhode Island Energy, we hire a lot of engineers. It's a lot of white men, okay? That's who ends up going into engineering. Well, there's a lot more people who can contribute to engineering than white men, right? So chatting with, people of color, chatting with women when they're younger can help that workforce development know that they can get there. I was reading something earlier that there are very few African American teachers out there. Sometimes you can't be what you can't see, right? If you're a Black person and you've never had an African American teacher, you might not realize that's something you can be. We need them, right? So inspiring people at younger ages, even though there might not be a lot of people who do that yet, we need you to do that. So that workforce development, I'm definitely seeing more of that happening.
So for my field in compensation, it actually affected us through federal regulations. So if you think about, there's the Equal Pay Act that's out there. Part of my role within the company that I work for is to ensure that we are paying appropriately and we are not, don't have pay biases based on somebody's gender or their ethnicity. So we do an annual review every single year where we look at individuals that are all doing the same job and how they're paid. And if there are women that are paid less than men, or if there are different ethnicities of individuals in the organization that are paid less than others, we try to balance that all out, and we actually create a budget to provide increases for those types of reasons. So that's very important to us. And we look at individuals that are being promoted within the organization. So if you have individuals that are going to be promoted to an executive level, like a senior director or a VP and above, we as part of the promotion process will look at what has that person done, and they're actually evaluated on that to what have they done to help improve the diversity and inclusion in the areas that they lead or manage, and what have they done to help, are they involved in business resource groups or employee resource groups and things like that. So that's all very important and very much at the forefront for the area that I work in.
Thank you so much. And so kind of going back to the conversation we had about some of the biggest challenges we have for women in this field, what are some collaborative approaches we can take to support women in the world of business going forward? And Melissa, we can start with this.
I would say it's so important to have a mentor, right? You might be fortunate enough to work in an organization where they have a mentor program and they'll match you up with a mentor, but that doesn't always happen. So know that if you want, you can be an advocate for yourself. If you find someone who you want to learn more from, don't be afraid to kind of hang out with them and pick their brain a little bit. It doesn't always have to be a formal relationship by saying, will you be my mentor? So I think that's important to seek out those opportunities of people who have been where you have been before, right? We all start somewhere. So find someone like you who you can grow and learn from. And another thing is women, I think they face a lot is that work-life balance thing, right? We are the ones who give birth to the children, right, most of the time. And because of that, it's always women giving birth. But men might have, there's times in their life where they might have to be involved in that as well. So if you can think about how to advocate for the needs that you have, whether it's having a longer maternity leave or figuring out childcare, right? You might need to eventually get your kids on and off the bus, that kind of thing. I think that those are some obstacles that we face as women that are worth looking at.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've been very lucky in all of my jobs to have really empathetic bosses. And I think that I try to be that way with my employees as well, where you have to understand that, everybody has something. So it might be kids, but it might be an aging parent. It could be your own health. It could be your dog. Who knows? But everybody has something, and I think it's very important to kind of lead with empathy and understanding. And obviously, people have to get their jobs done. But in this day and age, with hybrid work, and there's so many different options, you kind of have to give people a little bit of a slack sometimes. And I feel like that's important. The mentor thing, I agree wholeheartedly too. I've had some really great female leadership to look up to, and to try to like look up to them and follow them. So I agree.
I think you're taught here very clearly to lead with empathy, and that is how we can all be better for each other, regardless of men or women. Just lead with empathy, and keep that in the forefront of your brain. It's hard sometimes, especially when things are difficult. It's harder to be empathetic, but walk in people's shoes.
And if you're in a position in your organization to help develop policies and programs that support not only women, but men in the workforce or anyone in the workforce, flexible work arrangements are huge. They can support individuals that are caring for elderly parents, as well as individuals that have new babies at home, so on and so forth, or just may have illnesses themselves. I think it's very, very important to try to have an influence on that. And everybody else said, mentorship is very important, whether it's a male or a female, to help guide you through somebody that you can bounce ideas off of throughout your career. So I think that's very important.
Great, thank you so much. And so one last question, a bit more of a fun question. So thinking back at your time here at LaSalle, what advice would you give yourself? Doesn't have to be career-based or what you studied in college, but just in general, what advice would you give your high school self? And we can start with Jessica on this one.
Less hairspray. I was in the time of the bangs up high. But for real, I would say be easy on yourselves. I was very academically driven, which is really important. But then that leads to a lot of stress, and you have to kind of give yourself some grace to try new things and maybe fail. Be brave and just try things that seem a little bit outside of your zone of interest, which I did that while I was here as well. But I think that's a big thing, is to not be afraid to fail, because some things you're gonna try and love, and maybe that'll take you in a new direction that you didn't even see coming. So
So when I was at LaSalle, I used to dance for festival ballet, and my advice would be don't take so many ballet classes. I spent a lot of time, like 5 days a week, doing ballet, and to be honest, I'm not even sure I liked it that much at that point. I think I was doing it more because my parents were forcing me. I didn't have the heart to tell them. So really, my advice to you is if you're involved in a lot of activities, life is short, right? Maybe pick some, and I did other things in addition to that as well. I was very busy. If I could go back and do it again, I wish I had a conversation with my parents earlier and said, I've got a lot going on, like, I kind of just want to be a kid and have fun too. So that's the first thing. Also, I didn't have to have it all figured out. I think I would have told myself that, right? I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves that we have to know exactly what we want to be when we grow up. But guess what? You're so young, right? Like, you're going to change your career many times in your life. The average person has like 5 to 7 careers. That's not even jobs, that's careers. So, you know, cut yourself a little bit of slack. It's okay to not have it all figured out.
And also, it's okay to just stop caring what other people think. First of all, they probably aren't thinking about you as much as you think that they're thinking about you. But like you said, you have to learn at an early age to be your own self-advocate. You have to learn what's important to you, and you have to learn how to be brave enough to speak up when something's not right or something doesn't feel authentic. Just learn, if you can, to be okay with yourself as you are, exactly how you are. And tune out the noise of other people, because what you think matters the most.
Yeah, and that sort of touches upon what I was going to say as well, and it's basically just be true to yourself. You're going to get a ton of advice, a ton of guidance from all different people around you that are just trying to help you and help to lead you. And it's always very important to take a step back and listen to that and to understand what they're trying to tell you. But at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you're happy with whatever decisions you're making. So trust that everyone's intentions are good, but they're all coming from different perspectives. You need to look at your own perspective and what you want to do and trust yourself, and just go forward with that and be brave enough to go forward with what you think you want to do with your life and what next steps you want to take.
Thank you all so much. So that wraps up our questions for the panel. So students, you do have the opportunity to ask a question if you'd like. You can raise your hand and your dean will bring the microphone over to you.
To the woman on the far right, I'm Joey Kavanaugh, in the junior class, obviously. To the woman on the far right, I remember you were discussing the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workspace, and you said in these words that people are happier and more productive when they're surrounded by people that are similar to them and look like them. I didn't really understand how that makes the case for a diverse workplace. It seemed to kind of be the opposite to me. If you could expand more on that, I'd be grateful.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for quoting me back so perfectly. You paid attention. Great job. So there's a much longer explanation, but ultimately, right? We want somebody of every background represented, and it's awkward for me to walk into a boardroom that's all men. I'm on the board of trustees. When I started, I was one of 3 women. It was all white men named Tony, Tom, and God, there was, Mike. Tim. Yes, Tim. It was intimidating, but so just using the board as an example, as the board has evolved in the last 9 years that I've been on it, we brought in many more women. We brought in more minorities and different underrepresented identities to the board to be part of the conversation. When you're in a room where everybody looks a certain way, you start to question. Again, it goes to that imposter syndrome of like, do I even belong here? Like, do I fit? Where are the people that look like me? So when you have a much more diverse representation, you automatically feel slightly more included in that community. You might feel more empowered to speak up. You might want to bring more people in and continue that look. But ultimately what we want to do is make sure that we don't have thought silos. So we don't want to make sure everybody thinks like a white man or everybody thinks like a white woman. that'll just continue to give you the same results that you've always had. So to be comfortable, be confident among your peers and bring other people in alongside of you to speak up, you get many more results and you make more of an impact and you force change that frankly people probably haven't thought about before, because again, they're all if they all think the same way and the same identity, you get the same results. So it's a great question. I don't know, I hope I answered that a little bit more clearly. But you want to bring as many voices and people to the table that you can, and you feel more empowered when you're not alone.
Can I jump in and clarify really quick? So I think a lot of it is when we say we want more people that look like you, we want more people who look like the minority in the room, whoever that is. So if the minority in the room is a woman, right, or a certain personality, right, the minority can even be a certain way of thinking or a certain personality. We want to bring more people into the room who's the minority, if that makes sense. Is that? Yes. Okay. I hope that helps clarify it a little bit. But that's a great question. I understand why there was some confusion there.
I'll ask. I remember one of you guys said like there's always a boss that you'll want to work for. What if you like don't want to work for like someone and you want to like, start your own thing? I know with Green, you said how you have a bunch of different stuff that you do outside of like your job. Just wondering what that would like.
I just want to make sure I understand the question. What if there's a boss you don't? Oh, what if you want to work for yourself? Is that really the question?
Yeah, like kind of like start your own thing and like what that looks like. If any of you guys have tried it,
Yeah,
successful in it.
absolutely. I actually do that on the side. I'll let you guys jump in. You might have some too. So I do a couple of things on the side. I have my full-time job, right, that pays my bills, good steady job. On the side, I teach yoga, and I also have career coaching clients. My advice is, first of all, we're getting into what's called the gig economy, where many more people have side businesses and side projects and things going on. It's a great time to get into it. The best way to get into it is do it on the side. Have a stream of income that's kind of steady, right, to pay your bills or whatever you need, right? When later on in life you might have to, you know, pay a mortgage or the apartment rent, that kind of thing. It's a great thing to build on the side. So I guess my advice is seek out other people who have done it before, who know how to do it, right? And just start kind of dabbling with it on the side. If you have a goal that you want to be your own boss someday, I think that's wonderful. I've seen people go off and do that on their own. I've seen people go off and go to business school to get a foundation in how to do that. Or you latch onto someone else and support them as they're doing it. So there's different ways, but absolutely, like, I think that's a wonderful goal. If you have that entrepreneurial spirit and you want to work for yourself, there's so many opportunities to do that. And again, building it on the side is a nice, safe way financially to try it. Anyone else want to jump in?
Use that LaSalle network. There's a lot of very successful business people that have come from these chairs. I do not have advice because I am not brave enough to start my own company. My husband was, and there's a lot of terms and things that you don't see. How do you get investors? How do you get marketing? How do you pull that in? And so I think the best thing that you can do is just expose yourself to other people that have been there and done that, so you can learn what they would tell you not to do, what you maybe could form your ideas. But I think that's awesome that you want to be your own boss.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
There's also nonprofits. I'm having a blank right now. There's a bunch of nonprofits in Rhode Island where they give you free tips on how to start your own business. You could probably look into that. There's so many resources available.
Smart, I think, is one, and then if you're in the food industry, there's Hope in Maine has like incubators for, you know, food products. So yeah, you're right. There are a lot.
Enterprise Greenhouse, I think, is one. So yeah, something to look into for sure.
well as like the financial side of business with admission of students through contaction and your companies.
Yeah, so Clean Harbors is an environmental services company, so we do a lot of cleanup. We're actually one of the largest environmental services companies in the world, and we do all types of cleanup for like oceans, so when there's an oil spill, we're the company that they call to go clean that up. And so we have a really great mission for World Health Day, which is coming up now. And you know, every company has different functions that they need to help support the business to grow, and that they need to help to support the business to be financially sound. Compensation, human resources, that's one of those functions. Other than that, we employ a ton of chemists, biology majors, things like that, who actually help us understand how to take a hazardous material or a wasted material and repurpose that in the environment. So we are very environmentally friendly. Trying to think of what else I can answer. Did I answer your question or?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, perfect.
I think we have time for one last question and then we're all set.
Hi. So, I'm just wondering, oh, hi, I'm Maddie. Yeah. So, I'm just wondering if any of you guys have ever faced like the struggle, not like a struggle, but like just the experience of like trying to fit into like a stereotypical like being like a woman in the workplace. If you've ever faced like anything like that and kind of like how you deal with that, if, like you know what I'm saying about like being stereotypical like woman type of thing.
That's a good question, Ben. Thanks for asking that. Yeah, I received feedback a couple years ago that I was intimidating, which is funny. That's funny feedback because really that just means that the person who gave me the feedback is intimidatable, which is really not a me problem, that's a them problem. But again, I think it comes back to being very sure in who you are and what you bring to the table. There's microaggressions everywhere you go, right? There's always times where I had a baby, and I remember my female boss at the time, who also has a child, was like, well, you know, your ambition is gonna slow down because you had a kid. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, what? And you have to be comfortable saying, oh, no, I don't think that's true. And you're just being really sure of calling people out, and you don't have to be aggressive about it. But being able to catch it on the dime and say, no, let me change that narrative for you real quick. You're gonna face it. It still happens. But you know, I think again, being very confident in knowing who you are and what you stand for and what you believe in will take you through the worst of those situations. Thanks for asking that.
And I can answer that as well because I work in a very male-dominated, whether it be in financial services or the organization that I'm in today. And I think one of the things I learned as a female, I tend to be a little bit more emotional at times, and I learned early on in my career to always take a step back and not react to you know, some type of negative feedback that I've gotten or somebody that's angry or upset with the situation and things like that, because you'll find that in the workforce as a female, they expect you to be, right, a little bit more emotional. Oh, she's just upset again or whatever that may be. And I hate to say it, but it is there. So I've learned, and I give everybody advice as a female in this room, that if you're ever, or even a male, if you're ever upset over something, don't respond right away. Always take a step back and think about what you want to say. You always have time to respond, or you can always choose not to respond. And that's all within your purview to make that decision. But that's one of the things that I've learned just from dealing with others in the workplace as a female.
So similar to you, I work in a male-dominated industry. Kind of a funny story. When I started working here, I wanted to kind of like fit in a little bit more. Everyone wears flannel shirts, so I started wearing flannel shirts, which is very much not me. And then I realized a few months in that I didn't have to do that. It was almost like I was assuming that I had to like fit in and look like everyone else, and it felt kind of silly to me. I still wear them once in a while because that is the culture that I work in. So I guess what I want to say is find a healthy balance of trying to fit in, but also being who you are and keeping that individuality. I have more of a, compared to a lot of the people that I work with, they're engineers, right? They're logical, they're thinkers, they're more introverted. I'm usually more, bubbly and extroverted, and I've learned to just kind of embrace that, and they appreciate that. They're like, oh, Melissa, I'm so glad you sat in on that interview. It gave like a breath of fresh air. So I guess my advice is, you might be different, right? You might be a different person in that environment, but still show up as your true self, because you're gonna bring balance to everybody else. And it's okay if I'm not the only, if I'm the only one not in a flannel shirt too.
Thank you.
So thank you all to all of our panelists who came. It's great to see a diverse range of alumni in business come back to LaSalle to speak with all of you. And students, I know all of them are pretty open to speaking with you if you have interest in their career fields and stuff. So please definitely let me know if you'd like to make that connection.
I'm gonna hold you guys here until lunch, and when the bell rings, we can get dismissed to lunch. Okay?